You want them out. You don't want more to get in. You don't want more in Egypt. You have not treated the ones that are there as well.
Let's talk about like something that.
So I don't know about the Arab Brotherhood.
Let's talk about the secondary effect of the killing. I told you this example before. This is like you going in, killing someone in Fifth Avenue, and you're angry at the neighbors for not burying the corpse. I don't understand. Like, why doesn't Egypt tell them like, why don't you stop the killing? That is the question. Okay, I hear the thing. Explain to me, like a 5-year-old who hasn't lost his limbs in Gaza yet, explain to me how...
Don't make me laugh at something happened like that in Gaza.
No, I'll tell you. I will give you a 5-year-old analogy.
In today's video, Bassem Youssef absolutely destroys Chris Cuomo in a heated debate about Gaza on Chris Cuomo's show. Chris Cuomo tried to defend US and Israeli talking points on Gaza, but Bassem Youssef wasn't having it. Calm, sharp, and armed with brutal logic, Bassem Youssef dismantled Chris Cuomo's double standards on war, human rights, and US foreign policy. So let's dive in and watch how Bassem Youssef shuts down Chris Cuomo in this heated debate on Chris Cuomo's show.
Please.
Palestine is like a fishbowl. A fishbowl. It's a lot of fish. It's condensed. There's like so much fish in so little air. And Israel is like the person over that bowl and just like crashing the bowl, killing the bowl, taking the fish anytime. Because we talk about hostages, but we never talk about Palestinian hostages. There are like before October 7th, 5,000 Palestinian hostages in the prison of Israel. Now there's 12,000. Every single day, Israel can go in any house, take the house, burn the land, burn the olive oil, take the people, put them in. Isn't that hostage? That is a hostage situation that's been going on for years. But so Israel can do anything with this fishbowl. At a certain point, Israel is just hovering over that fishbowl. And then at one moment, a fish crazy enough, suicidal enough, will jump from the bowl through the air, bite the pinky of Israel. And Israel like, oh my God, that bitch bit my pinky. My hand was not even in the bowl. And then they go in and they destroy the bowl. And all you can see is Israel pinky. You know what I call this? Tunnel vision.
Yes, I don't love the analogy because the pinky, I get it. The pinky is not a good analogy to October 7th.
Really?
And no. It's not just the
how many civilians were killed on October 7th?
For Israel, let's say it was 800.
373.
Let's say it was they say it was 1,400.
No. Oh, it's amazing that you mentioned the number because October 7th.
Well, I didn't make it up.
No. You were right. October 7th, the first number that came out was 1,400.
Right.
Then it was revised to 1,200. Then the final was 1,129. 373 of them were civilians.
Right.
56 of them were military and police. So 370. Why do you think the number came down from 1,400 to 1,129?
Because it was inaccurate.
No.
Why?
According to Israeli official, because so many bodies were so burned and so stuck together, they could not distinguish the Hamas fighters from the Israeli hostages, right? So that much fire that burns the body that much, do you think people with machine guns on motorcycle have that kind of fire? No, that was the firepower of tanks and Apache. And according to Israeli witnesses, Israel was a lot, according to a Hannibal directive, if people would like to actually look that up, Israel actually killed many of those hostages on the way out. As a matter of fact, one of the soldiers said, I saw a car running back to the borders, and I know that there were hostages, so I thought of killing everybody instead of taking them hostage. And that is so effective. You understand what this soldier said? He was like, okay, if they are dead, there's no hostages, there's no rescue effort, so now I have saved one shift. This is amazing. Basically, like their idea of not negotiating with terrorists is not have anything to negotiate about. And those pictures of cars that were incinerated and burned to a crisp, this is not the fire. And this is another thing that I want you to do, Chris, because nobody talks about this. The Hannibal Directive and how Israel has messed up this has been talked about for months in Israel, and not a single American news person has talked about that.
What Bassem Youssef is putting his finger on is something Western media almost never wants to confront: the sheer asymmetry of this conflict. Chris Cuomo tries to pivot everything back to October 7th, but if you look at the actual numbers since then, it's staggering. More than 40,000 Palestinians have been killed in Gaza, according to the UN and Palestinian health authorities, with the majority being women and children. Compare that to the revised Israeli death toll from October 7th, around 1,139 people, a tragic loss, but nowhere near the scale of what Gaza has endured in the months since. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Israel has a documented history of using policies like the Hannibal Directive, which military analysts and even Israeli officials have admitted often meant killing their own hostages to prevent them being taken alive. That isn't some fringe conspiracy. That's been reported by Hartarez and investigated by human rights organizations. Yet, as Bassem Youssef points out, you won't hear it on CNN or other mainstream American outlets. Even the hostage situation itself has double standards baked in. Right now, Israel holds over 8,000 Palestinian prisoners, many of them children and people detained without trial under administrative detention. Amnesty International has called this a system of apartheid and arbitrary detention, but when Palestinians retaliate or fight back, the narrative is immediately stripped of all that context, as if it came out of nowhere.
And let's talk about, okay, now, you know what? I will talk to you as an American funder. My tax money funds that war. And we fund Israel for a very important thing, to keep Jewish people safe, right? We need to keep Jewish people safe. When October 7th happened, the response time was 6 hours. Now, just for people who don't know the Middle East, Israel is as big as New Jersey.
Yes.
It is that small and that horrible. And if you have a small, in a place that small, they have more military bases and airfields more than Manhattan has Starbucks.
So why do you think it was so slow?
I don't know, but like I'm telling you, I don't know. If I cannot stop the war, at least as someone who financed that, I need a performance report. They took 6 hours to move in something that shouldn't take more than 5 minutes. 6 hours. Did they stop to ask for directions? Were they they're taking the scenic route?
You are suggesting that they wanted it to go.
I don't know. I don't know. I am asking you as a performer, why are we not talking about the failure of that state that we finance and we pay?
Because they're in the midst of crisis. Look,
No.
When we were
in the middle of a crisis, you can evaluate the people that you are financing. 26 billion, and also
we never do that.
And also, like crisis,
we never do that.
I'm sick and tired of this, Chris.
But we never do that, Bassem, just so you know.
They cannot play the victim and the oppressor in the same time. They have been crying for 8 months.
I would argue that Israel is the only place that can argue both at the same time.
No.
They are both David and Goliath. They are the strongest in the region. They are also the most hunted in the region. They are a small group of people been kicked out of all the surrounding countries. They are left in one. And they are very strong in that one.
Israel is.
Where did all the Jews go in the other countries?
Israel, I can tell you exactly how that happened, but like Israel is like a serial killer who is bitching about a paper cut while he's on a killing spree. That is what Israel is. They, the whole most hunted. You know when Iran.
How often is a serial killer surrounded by people who want to kill him?
Really, they are surrounded by people who protected him. You know, like when Iran sent the drone attacks. Where do you think the flights that actually intercept? They came from Arab countries that are friends from Israel. The biggest military power in the region is Egypt. Did you see Egypt firing a single missile towards Israel? Jordan, Saudi Arabia. Do you see? You're talking about Hezbollah and Hamas, two militant groups.
You really believe that Egypt is an ally of Israel?
It's not an enemy.
Well, that's not the same thing.
No, it's not an enemy because you're telling me everybody.
Are you my friend or you're not my enemy?
No. You're telling me they're hunted. I don't see Israel hunting. I don't see Egypt hunting Israel or Jordan hunting
not
Israel.
Not right now. They have in the past.
So basically,
and if it weren't for the United States, Israel would have taken out
I feel. Yeah. Well, actually, you know that Egypt takes aid from America in order for Israel, for Israel's security. You understand how much Israel is costing us?
What Bassem Youssef is pointing to here is the contradiction at the heart of US policy on Gaza and Israel. Chris Cuomo frames it as simply protecting Jewish people, but the numbers show this is less about safety and more about enabling unchecked military dominance. Since World War II, Israel has been the largest cumulative recipient of US foreign aid with over $260 billion in military and economic assistance, according to the Congressional Research Service. Right now, US taxpayers are sending about $3.1 billion every year to fund Israeli defense, plus additional emergency packages like the $14 billion Biden signed off on. That's money that directly subsidizes airstrikes, siege tactics, and weapons transfers, not just security. And the whole tiny Israel surrounded by enemies narrative that Chris Cuomo leaned on doesn't really hold up today. Israel is not isolated. It has normalized relations with multiple Arab states under the Abraham Accords, UAE, Bahrain, Morocco, Sudan, and it maintains strong security ties with Egypt and Jordan. In fact, Egypt and Jordan receive billions in US aid themselves, partly in exchange for keeping peace with Israel. So the image of Israel as a fragile David surrounded by hostile Goliaths ignores the reality. It's a nuclear-armed US-backed regional superpower with military technology far beyond any neighbor. And here's another fact that doesn't get discussed much. The Israeli military already knew about potential Hamas plans for October 7th nearly a year in advance. Reports in the New York Times and Haaretz show Israeli intelligence had access to Hamas's invasion blueprint, condemned Jericho Wall but dismissed it as too ambitious. So when people wonder about the slow response on that day, it's not just speculation. There's documented evidence of serious intelligence failures, if not outright negligence.
And let's talk about America again for a second. You have a joint session from Congress inviting Netanyahu, a war criminal, someone with a global approval rate what's worse than Satan. And then you bring them here while the whole world telling you this is a war criminal. This is you have people going on pilgrimages to Tel Aviv to tell Netanyahu that we're very sorry for Biden is not supporting you enough. And who are these people loyal to? Are they loyal to the United States, or are they loyal to the people who pay for their elections? You have an AIPAC bragging about spending $100 million and having a 98% success rate in the Congress. How is not that the main news in every single newscast? All of those comedians who think that they're tough people talking about, look, America first, talking about making fun of everything. Isn't that enough material about talking about an effect of a foreign country in our elections?
It should all be on the table. One sad thing for me is when you start getting into money in American elections, there's so many deep pockets now because of what we have made legal. The problem in our politics, for the first time ever, is not illegal money, illegal influence.
It's legal.
Legal money and legal influence. I got to jump. I appreciate you seeding conversation for people. I know people aren't going to like a lot of what he said. Some people will like a lot of what he said, and they won't like what I said. That's okay.
That's why we have a conversation.
That's right.
That's why we're cool.
That's right. I don't have the same experience. I'll never demonize him for it. He is my friend.
And I'll never demonize him. Also because he's legit. He's like, you're Jack, man.
It's all pads, all pads. I have to take a break. Bassem Youssef, okay? He is a brilliant comedian. I know we're talking politics, but he has many talents.
What Bassem Youssef is highlighting is something that doesn't get nearly enough attention in mainstream US coverage: the overwhelming influence of pro-Israel lobbying in Washington. Groups like AIPAC openly brag about their success rate in elections, spending tens of millions of dollars each cycle to unseat critics of Israeli policy and boost candidates who toe the line. In 2022 alone, AIPAC and its affiliates spent over $30 million in Democratic primaries, defeating progressives who dared to call for conditioning aid to Israel. That's not some fringe accusation. That's on the record, and it shapes who gets to sit in Congress and how they vote when Netanyahu comes to town. And here's the kicker. While Chris Cuomo frames the issue as just legal money and politics, the reality is that foreign policy is being heavily influenced by a foreign government's interests. It's not just lobbying either. Congress consistently passes bipartisan resolutions pledging unconditional support for Israel, even as human rights organizations like Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch document the war crimes and apartheid in Gaza and the West Bank. Imagine if any other foreign leader with an active war and allegations of mass civilian killing were invited to a standing ovation at a joint session of Congress. It's unthinkable, but Israel gets that treatment regularly. And let's not forget the irony here. Americans are told to fear foreign interference whenever it comes from Russia, China, or Iran. But when pro-Israel groups pour unlimited money into US elections, perfectly legal under Citizens United, It's brushed off as business as usual. That double standard is exactly why people like Bassem Youssef hits a nerve. He's saying out loud what a lot of Americans suspect but rarely hear on CNN. Our tax dollars and our political system are being leveraged to give unconditional cover to a government accused of carrying out atrocities. Pause. Are you getting tired of getting half the story from biased news sources? One outlet says one thing and another says the complete opposite. How are you supposed to know what's actually true? That's where ground news comes in. It lets you compare how different media outlets, left, right, and center are covering the same story. So you can see the full picture instead of just the echo chamber. And here's the best part. Click the link in the description and get 40% off the Vantage tier, which gives you even deeper insights into media bias and political trends. Stay informed, think for yourself, and check out ground news in the description down below.